Hi there, my name is Toby, and let me start by saying this. Modern science knows nothing, and it's worse than that. Modern science knows less than nothing. It's made everything far more complicated and confusing, and we are so ignorant, so naive, that we actually believe this. Now, let me justify that. What is science? What is it supposed to be? Science is supposed to be looking at the universe, the phenomena in the universe, and explaining it. But what have we done? What have we done? Well, we've got biology. Let's start with biology. Or that used to be known as natural science, and that's supposed to be explaining life. But they make no attempt to explain life. They don't talk about life. Living organisms are animated matter. What is animating that matter? They don't even mention it. Biology is simply looking at particles, analysing biological materials, and categorising them. Oh, look, here's another little biological particle. Maybe it does this. Oh, look, there's another little biological particle. Maybe it does that. All of that is secondary. It's irrelevant. What is the force that animates them? Don't even mention it. So that to me is not even a science. And we've got chemistry. Chemistry used to be known as alchemy. Alchemy. But we can also call it cooking. Cooking, same thing. Chemistry is looking at different substances and mixing them together to see what happens. But they make no attempt to explain those substances, and chemistry really just refers to physics. In order to explain what is happening, they just refer back to physics. They have no idea themselves. Again, it's just categorization. If I take this substance and I mix it with that substance, then this happens. Why or how? Oh, we don't know. We'll refer back to physics. Now, physics is the big one. Physics is the real big one. Physics is the one that has made everything so confusing. You see, we have all these different phenomena in the universe. And physics is looking at all these different phenomena, and in the same way, it's trying to categorize them. Now, they are trying to unify. They would like to have what they call the grand unified field theory, but they can't find it. If we were to summarize physics, it is to try and discover the underlying natural force in the universe. And they've narrowed it down to 4 fundamental forces. 4, not 1, 4. And really, they can't explain any one of those 4 forces. Again, it's observation of phenomena. Oh, look, here's a phenomena. Something's going on. What is going on? Oh, I don't know. Let's give it a name. Let's call that electricity, for example. But over here, we've got something else going on. Let's call that magnetism. And then we look at matter, we break it down, and it seems to be made of particles. So let's call them atoms. But atoms are another problem, because we're breaking down into particles. We think those atoms must be made of smaller particles. If it's made of smaller particles, protons and neutrons, again, this is all just terminology that has been invented to try and explain a phenomena. But they don't explain anything. They do not explain anything. You see, again, they are inventing terminology to try and explain a phenomena. It's only an attempt. And they have made it so complicated, so convoluted, and so disjointed. It's all separate. I've already said it here, we've got 3 branches of science: biology, chemistry, and physics. Already we've separated them. There is only one science. There's only one universe. There's only going to be one science. And there's a whole other phenomena. Again, I've already talked about life. We've got consciousness, the mind. Oh, well, that's another science. We'll give that to the psychologists. The psychologists can talk about the mind. But they don't know what it is. They have no idea what it is. Again, it's observation of phenomena, categorization of phenomena, and inventing, here's the key, inventing terminology. That's really all they've done. Invented words. Biology and chemistry is just a long list of words. And when I studied science, the only one that interested me was physics, because I believed if I studied physics, I would understand. I didn't want to memorize anything. If I studied biology or chemistry, I would have to memorize all these different long names. I don't want to just remember names, words for the sake of it. But really, physics is the same. It's just a long list of terminology. And it's so complicated now that most people, most of us, have no idea. It's impossible for us to understand. So we have to go and do a degree, then we have to do a PhD, and then maybe we'll become a professor, and maybe then we understand. But if you look at it now, all of the top scientists, and I mean really the tip-top scientists, I don't mean the intermediate ones, the top scientists now across the board will all say, yeah, we don't understand anything. Quantum mechanics is the classical one. The top people in quantum mechanics will admit it. Yeah, we don't understand anything. And they just keep inventing new words, new terminology to try and explain a new phenomena that they don't understand. And again, most of us, we have no clue. So that has made us extremely ignorant. None of us, normal people, understand anything. We must refer to the scientists. Oh, the scientists know. So we've all become lazy. Yeah, we've taken it for granted. Oh, the scientists, they're so clever. We believe them. We don't understand it. But the scientists, they've come up with technology. Look at the technology they built. Oh, they must know something. Yeah, technology is only secondary. Secondary. It's not primary. Technology explains nothing. Let's go back. Chemistry is the best one. Chemistry, you can take different substances, mix them together, and you'll find an effect. And if you get very good at that, lots and lots of different substances, and you know, if I mix these 2 together, mix these 3 together, I'll get this thing. You can create technology, but you have no idea really what you're doing. No idea. Same with physics. Same with physics. We've got certain branches of physics that we've analysed. Let's take electricity. Electrical engineering. That's most of what we've got. Most of what we've got is electrical engineering. But no, and I mean no electrical engineer has any idea whatsoever what electricity actually is. They don't know what it is. Same with magnetism. Magnetism is another effect. It's connected to electricity somehow, and we can analyze it and see, oh, it connects to electricity like this. But what is it? We don't know. You see, we've invented terminologies to try and explain these things. And the terminologies we've invented, some of them are this. All right, we know, I've said electricity, magnetism. We talk about energy. We talk about force. We talk about fields. A field. We have a magnetic field. We have a gravitational field. Gravity, another one. Don't really know what that is. Keep changing our mind about gravity. But what is a field? Don't even know what a field is. It's an abstract terminology. Energy. What is energy? Yeah, don't really know what energy is. It's a terminology we've invented to try and explain a phenomena that we cannot understand. And now we've invented terminology for things that are completely fantastical. In quantum mechanics, we've got things like virtual particles. Okay, it's bad enough that we've gone down to subatomic particles, that there's no evidence for this. But now we've got virtual subatomic particles. What is a virtual particle? It means it's a particle, but it doesn't really exist. Yeah, okay. My purpose in life, what has driven me in this life, is to try and understand everything that's going on. I need to understand it. And I believe it is simple. I can understand it, and we all can understand it. This universe belongs to all of us. We are in this universe. We make up this universe. We all must and should be able to understand it. It's not just for the scientists. The scientists, I would argue, have created a mysterious world now. A mysterious, fantastical world that only they understand. We have no clue. We have no clue. Now again, don't get me wrong here. Don't get confused. I am not denying engineering. We've done a lot of amazing engineering and we're still doing it. But it is severely limited because we do not understand the underlying nature of the universe, how it works. We're only looking at localized phenomena and then playing around with it. You see, electrical engineering, localized phenomena, electricity. We play around with it and we can create some technology. Chemistry, another thing, localized phenomena, different substances, we can play around with them. And we've created a certain amount of a framework that explains these localized phenomena, and it works to a degree. Again, I'm not dismissing it totally, but I'm saying it is so convoluted, so divergent, that it has actually made the problem worse, not better. It's made it worse. Because our mind has now got so locked into that localized terminology that we cannot step back and see the big picture. Now, I want to try and explain the universe in one simple way and explain all phenomena in the same way. The universe must be singular, one thing. It must be comprised of one single thing, one substance. Okay, I'm going to create a terminology, and I'm saying it, yes, it is a terminology, and I'm going to call it the ether. But I'm telling you now that is only a word. We can have different words, but at least it's only one. And the whole universe is made of this ether, and this ether is moving, interacting, and creating all different phenomena. Now, let's bring it back once more to the very beginning. You see, most people now believe, because of this modern science, that life emerged from physics. So life emerged from physics, and then consciousness emerged from life. No. It doesn't take much thinking to realize this. It has to be the other way round. Consciousness comes first. Has to be. Consciousness is not physical. Metaphysics must come first, and everything must follow from there. So life must emerge from consciousness, and physics must emerge from consciousness. It's the other way round. Consciousness first, then life, then physics. Not physics, then life, then consciousness. Real science is understanding. If we understand the universe, we don't have to memorize anything. We can all do it. That is the simple understanding we all need. Consciousness comes first, life comes second, physics comes third. We are all consciousness. Everything that goes on in this body derives from consciousness. I am consciousness. I can control my consciousness. We all can. If I can control my consciousness, I can control this body, and I can control physics. Again, to a degree, we know that there's a separation between us. Now, we have forces, we have kinetics, we have movement, we have electricity. So we do have all these different phenomena. But remember, we have to look at them from a distance. They all must be one and the same phenomena. These all must be phenomena of the ether. And like I said, the simplest way of looking at it is the ether is fluid, pure fluid. We can see light. I've already talked about light. Light is pure fluid. It behaves like fluid. But now modern science has tried to explain it and made it very, very complicated. No, just fluid. We've seen electricity. We know electricity exists. We've seen lightning in the sky. And we've now done electrical engineering. We can see a little spark. We can power things with electricity. But that, again, must still be fluid. And it looks like fluid. It behaves like fluid. But we've made it very complicated. It's something else now. We've got magnetism. We always had magnetism. They were natural magnetic rocks. We had magnetite. So we already had it. And that has a physical effect. It will move things. But again, it must be a phenomena of the ether, pure fluid. And of course, we've got gravity. We've got it. If I lift something up, it will fall down. Gravity. Apparently, seemingly, another phenomena. But again, it must still be based on this pure fluid. So let me try. This is what I'm trying to do on this channel in this lecture series. So this is the little lecture series that I'm calling Aether and the Shamanic Universe. I'm trying to explain the universe in a very simple way. And I'm trying to get rid of all of this old terminology. So I'm starting again. And today I want to talk about electromagnetism, because that is the biggest one. That is the one where science has really made it all confusing. So let's start again. Let's start from the beginning. I go over this again and again and again because we need to understand it. We need to get the whole big picture. If we can get that, all of us, we all can, then we can start to understand the minor details. So pure consciousness, we've got to start from there. Pure consciousness is not physical. I mean, in its purest, ultimate state. No physics whatsoever. Pure consciousness creates geometry. Geometry means space. So let's say that. The ether, the underlying background of the universe must be one thing, and we'll say that one thing is pure consciousness, and that's everything. Everything everywhere. That must be total, absolute, complete. That means balance. It's stationary. It's stillness, nothing happening. So pure consciousness is outside space and time, but pure consciousness creates space. It has the idea of geometry. Geometry means space. Then from there, everything must happen. The very first thinking, the very first thoughts in consciousness create time. As soon as you're thinking, that's a movement, that's time. Moving geometry is time. As soon as you've got time, well, now something's going on. But it's going on inside consciousness. Still not necessarily what you would call physical. So this is the underlying background of the universe. This we can say is the most subtle, the most diffuse, the most dilute, the softest level or density of the ether. But inside that, inside this soft diffused ether, all different things are going on. You will have increasing density. You will have movements. So from that, we can gradually build up all different phenomena. So I've already talked you through it. Consciousness creates thinking, thought energy. That's what I'm talking about here, the first level of the ether, thought energy. But thought energy condenses into emotional energy, feelings, and again, I've called that love. Love, we can say, is the energy of feeling, the energy of life. But again, I'm using words, I'm creating my own terminology here. Everything I say on this channel, you've got to think about it. I'm using words that we understand, that have been used before, but I'm trying to explain to you a new picture. So you have to look behind my words, all of them, all of them. So I'm calling the second level love. From love, it goes down to light. Now light, we also have got some manifestation. We can see light. But remember, everything must be this pure fluid. So light is is getting denser. Light condenses down into what I've called electricity. But let's call that now electromagnetism. Because we do have two phenomena, electricity and magnetism. Again, I'm referring to science, what it has discovered. We do need to look at phenomena, and they've done that, but they have not explained it properly. That's the difference. So I'm not denying the phenomena, I'm not denying the technology, I'm saying they do not understand what it is. That's what I'm trying to do, explain to you what it is. So the next level down, we've got electromagnetism. And then lower than that, denser than that, we've got something else called plasma. Again, we've seen all these phenomena, they exist. There's no denying these phenomena. But what are they? Again, we must come back to the first premise. The universe is one thing, pure fluid with different densities. That's the only way we can explain all these phenomena and unify them. And remember, we're unifying consciousness and matter. We're unifying spirit and body. It's the only way we can do it. Different levels, different densities. Now, okay, let's take another step back. Let's go one step back to energy. Energy. Again, we haven't defined energy, we don't know what it is, but energy gives us the ability to move. Things are happening. Technology is based on energy, the use of energy. We don't know what that energy is, But let's come back to the beginning. Energy, let's just say energy is movement of the ether. Different densities of the ether moving, changing. Again, the best analogy is water. Ice, water, and steam. We know it's all water, one substance, water. But we've got ice, that's something different. We've got water, well, that's fluid, that's something different. And we've got steam, gas, oh, that's something different. Yeah, it's not. It's all the same thing, water, but different densities. And it's also different energy levels. Gas is a higher energy level, water is a lower energy level, ice is a lower energy level. So we can say that. Again, I'm talking analogously, but as an analogy, no scientist, anyone would disagree with that. We take that analogy and apply it to the ether. But the ether is not, repeat, not water. It's something else. It's a pure fluid, no particles. There are no particles in this. But the lightest density, like steam, like gas, that is the thought energy. And you come down to physical phenomena, moving down towards water, and moving down towards ice. Ice, we know, is solid material substances. So this physical body is a very dense form of this ether, very dense. And phenomena apply on the level of density. See, mostly on this physical density, only physical things affect each other. My body can interact with your body. We could have a fight. We're interacting on a physical level. On this particular density, interactions happen. Now, there is a certain level of interaction with another density, for example, light. We've got light here in this room. Light is interacting with me. I'm interacting with it, but it's so subtle, very, very slight interaction. The light is landing on me, but I can't really do anything much to the light. We can see that. But the light is affecting me. I'm not really affecting the light, or my body is not affecting the light. So as a general principle, we've noticed that the lower densities, the higher densities, the softer densities tend to affect the lower densities. Remember the order. Consciousness moves to life, moves to physics. Consciousness, thought energy, affects the emotional energy, which affects the physical energy. Higher density affects the lower density. We can see it. Light is a higher density, lower density rather. When I say higher, I mean more diffuse, more spiritual. Again, just words, just words. Light affects my body, so you can see me, but my body cannot really affect the light. Electricity is denser. Again, electricity will affect my body. I can get an electric shock. But my body cannot really affect electricity. Yeah, I can create electricity. That's something different. There is electricity in my body. So my body is creating electricity. But where does this come from? It comes from my spirit, my consciousness, my soul. My soul creates thoughts. My thoughts create emotions. My emotions create light. Light creates electricity. Higher, softer, more diffuse densities can affect the lower, the denser, more physical densities. But it doesn't work so much the other way. It does. It works in all different directions. But as a general rule, that's how we can see it. Softer densities, lighter densities affect heavier densities. So the heaviest density we know is plasma. I've already talked about that. Plasma is denser than electricity, but electricity, or really electromagnetism, will affect a plasma. In fact, it will create a plasma. But once you've got a plasma, that in itself has some interaction, but we know it now. To hold a plasma, you need a magnetic field. To create a plasma, you need an electric charge. Well, let's have a look at electricity itself. What is it? Well, the universe must work in this way. Like I said, one ether, total balance. Within that balance, there is movement. Movement means imbalance. We create a disturbance in the ether. That is an imbalance. An imbalance creates a potential, a difference, a separation. But that imbalance always wants to come back to balance. It has to, because that's what the ether is. From this total balance, imbalance is created. But once an imbalance is created, that imbalance wants to move, wants to go back to balance. Again, we can say this, we can observe this. This is the simplest way of saying that. So when we create an imbalance in the ether, depending on the density of the ether, it will release at that density. So electricity is a particular density of the ether. If we can create an imbalance in that density of the ether, when that imbalance wants to return to balance, electricity is manifested. Again, look at it. We create an electrostatic potential. We create a battery. Let's look at a battery. Inside a battery is some chemicals. It's a chemical process. We've set up some substances that create a dynamic. There's a dynamic between two substances, let's say, in a battery. That creates an imbalance. And if we allow that imbalance to release itself by putting a wire across the battery, we have electricity. It's a particular density phenomena. But what's interesting is electricity, when we have an electric current, we also have magnetism. Magnetism. Now again, this is very, very deep. This is very radical. But think about it. Magnetism is a byproduct of electricity. Now we do, like I said, we have magnetic substances, and I've got to explain those in a minute, but usually when we have electricity, that is the only way we have magnetism. In a battery, there's no magnetism. There's no magnetism in a battery. In fact, there's no electricity in a battery. We've just set up a potential, a disturbance of the ether. But when that disturbance, that divergence of the ether is released, we have electricity, and when electricity is flowing, moving, then, and only then, we have magnetism. So electricity and magnetism always come together. So really, we should not say the word electricity. Electricity makes it too confusing. There's only one thing, that is electromagnetism. And electromagnetism is a particular manifested or phenomena that occurs at a particular density of this pure fluid ether. Let's go back to physics, this body. This body is even more dense. Material substance is even more dense. If I set up a movement of this material substance, just me moving my arms like this through the air, this is creating an effect. I'm moving my hands through the air molecules. I'm creating an after effect. Moving my hands moves the air molecules. It's a very dense body now, and it creates a dense effect. See, if I were to push you, you would move. But me pushing you is the cause. When you move, that's the effect. So I'm creating a movement at this density, and that creates an effect at this density. In electricity, I'm creating a movement in the ether, and that creates a particular effect of that movement. So quite literally, magnetism is the byproduct, the after effect of electricity moving. Just like me moving my hand through the air creates an after effect in the air. Look at it like this. The electricity is pure fluid, water moving along. Imagine underwater. Underwater, everything is underwater. What we have, we create another jet of water. Imagine we have a garden hose. A garden hose will spray out water. But imagine, okay, let's say this. We're filling a pond with water in the garden. So we take the garden hose, we put it underwater in the pond, and we let the pond fill up. But the hose is a jet of water, and it's underneath the water. And this water pushes through as it fills up the pond, but it creates a turbulence in the whole pond. We all know this. Water, fast water coming out underwater, there still will be a jet of water underwater in the pond, but this jet is creating a turbulence through the whole water. When I stop filling the water up, I turn the hose off, the whole pond is filled now, the water just gets stills down. Look at it like this. So electricity is like this hose, this jet of water, and it's filling up the pond, but the pond is the ether. So a jet of electricity creates this movement, this turbulence around it at this particular density. That turbulence we can call magnetism. And again, in electrical engineering, we know this. There's a thing called the right-hand rule. Right-hand rule is like this. So it means in one direction, if an electric current is traveling forward, the magnetic field is perpendicular to it. But this will also create a physical effect. There will be a physical movement occurring in a direction perpendicular to both of these things. Something is happening in three-dimensional space. Electricity is moving one way, magnetism is moving perpendicular in the other direction, but physical movement, kinetics, is in a third direction. Think of it like this. The three-dimensional space, we can call these Cartesian coordinates, x, y, z. You know, length, breadth, and width. Or length, width, and depth. Three-dimensional space. All three dimensions. So at the particular density of electricity, when electricity is manifest, we have these three-dimensional space, there's an effect. Magnetism happens in the other direction, and a physical movement happens in the other direction. That's literally how we create a dynamo. We have a coil of wire, and we pump a magnet through it, so you've got to create a physical movement, and then we create an electric current in a different direction around the coil. So this is an effect of a particular density of the ether, electromagnetism. But light, as I said in the last lecture, light is a different density. So light behaves slightly differently. But light is still a potential, the release of a potential. Light wants to go off into space. It wants to release itself. It wants to dissipate, and it will dissipate away. Again, very deep, but light, so we've got light here. We've got light in the universe. The light from the stars, long, long way away, is coming towards us. But over these galactic or intergalactic distances, that light is gradually getting softer and softer, more and more diffuse. And this again is the explanation for what they call the expanding universe. Because they talk about the red shift. There's a red shift in the universe that means it's expanding. But this is a better explanation of the red shift. And again, I've got to refer to my good new friend Steve. So I'm going to call this Steve's theory of light. I talked about him in the last lecture, and I'll leave links below to his paper on the ether. And Steve's theory of light is that light, again, is just the ether, a particular density of the ether, and as it spreads out, it gets softer and softer. So when you see red light, say, coming from the distant universe, it's not a frequency, so it's not a Doppler effect. Again, they call it a Doppler effect. That means the universe is expanding. It's simply an effect of light getting more and more diffuse. So it might start off as blue light, but over intergalactic distances, it will end up as red light. Blue light is more dense, red light is more diffuse. But even greater distances, it will get more and more diffuse. Eventually, it will become invisible light. We cannot see it anymore. So we know that energy is coming from the universe, invisible energy, very diffuse light. But I am saying this is my theory, the universe is infinite, going off to infinity. So we're getting extremely diffuse light coming from the distances. And it's getting so diffuse, it's going back to thought energy. The infinite universe and infinite distance, light might be coming from there, but by the time it reaches us, it's all the way back to thought energy. Thought energy is the most diffuse energy creating the universe. But let's go back to electromagnetism. That's more dense. So we need to set up a dynamic that allows electricity to be created. And the easiest way to see that dynamic is in lightning, in the weather. And the weather, really the weather is a perfect model of the ether. Because the weather is the clouds, it's the air, very diffuse, it's a gas. Very diffuse gas. And in fact, it's also light. Light is coming. Light is still part of the weather. Light, remember, is heat. Same thing. Heat. Heat is coming in, very diffuse. But you've also got water, again, which are particles, water molecules. But that's more denser form. Water molecules get together to create clouds. Clouds get together to create more dense water, little water droplets. But in the water droplets, we've also got electromagnetism. It's already there. Again, we have to build up step by step. But because we've got water droplets, inside a water droplet, we're also condensing the ether. There is a condensation of ether creating electromagnetism. And sometimes you get these droplets building up denser and denser electromagnetism. And we will have a static potential, two clouds or two areas in the sky. One has got a very big build-up of electromagnetism, and one has got less, or hardly any. And of course you've got the earth below. The earth below, we call it ground. But really all we've got is the release of electromagnetism. It means the energy, the ether, wants to return back to rest. When the static potential builds up, it wants to go to rest, and it needs a pathway, a method to manifest itself such that it can release and go back to rest. So sometimes we get lightning. Then lightning is the release of that static potential. It doesn't necessarily go to Earth. You will see it go in the clouds. It branches off. high pressure electromagnetism is being released down to low pressure electromagnetism. That's all it is. The same ether, high pressure, moves to low pressure. And at a particular density, that is electromagnetism. In light is slightly different. Higher, a lower pressure ether, but the same thing, light, high pressure light, coming off a star, say, all these light bulbs, spreading out. Where's it going? It's going off to lower pressure light. It's going off, it's spreading out towards darkness everywhere. It's becoming more diffuse. So we can look at it this way. Light is high pressure density at a particular, light is high pressure at a particular density moving towards dark. Dark is a lower pressure at that same density. Now look at it in kinetics. Kinetics is very interesting. We've got gravity. And I've talked about gravity in a very fundamental sense. Gravity comes from space. Consciousness creates space, but space is still not physical. Once you've got space and time, space is the expansion of consciousness. But remember, we've created an expansion of consciousness that is already a divergence of consciousness, a disturbance of the ether on its highest level, most diffuse level. That is an imbalance. Space itself is an imbalance created from consciousness, which is perfect balance. So space itself wants to return to balance. It wants to go back to the infinitesimal point. It wants to disappear. But on a physical level, once we've got material substances, there is also movement kinetics. And objects, we've got gravity between physical objects. But very interesting that this, most people don't know this. You've got to ask some top scientists about this. Again, most scientists don't even know this, but this is true, evidential. If you throw an object in outer space, so there's no friction, you just throw an object off, and there's no gravity. So we think that object will just fly off in space forever. It doesn't. Even in outer space, if you throw an object, it will travel off in outer space, but eventually it slows down and will stop. Again, most people don't know this. You will have to do some research to find this out. But it means even in the absence of any immediate gravitational field, an object in space, kinetics, will slow down and eventually stop. Okay, it'll be a long, long way, and they do not know why that is. They don't know why that is. But of course I do. It's because of the nature of the ether. Even kinetics is a particular divergence of the ether. It wants to come back to rest. All movement, and I mean physical movement, wants to return back to stillness. It's the underlying nature of the ether, all levels, all densities of the ether. Movement is the creation of a force, a potential, a difference, a divergence of the ether. That is energy. But all that energy, all that movement wants to return to balance. That we can also call entropy. That's it. That is the whole universe in a nutshell. Electromagnetism, again, we should only use one word, electromagnetism. We don't separate out electricity and magnetism. There's no separation. So I should say to you now, what is a magnet? A magnet is a solid state thing. It's a solid lump. There's no electricity in a magnet, but we've got a magnetic field around it. How? Why? Well, again, this goes back to the nature of an atom. And again, I've described atoms, but there's no such thing as an atom. There's no such thing, well, there's certainly no such thing as subatomic particles, because we really, there's no evidence for it. There is only indirect evidence of subatomic particles, totally indirect. We have got more direct evidence of atoms. We have had the ability to sort of manipulate single atoms, but we don't know what they are. Now, I've described them. I said an atom is the high density plasma. Plasma is the highest density of the ether, but that plasma will compact and sometimes will have a bubble. And that bubble we can call an atom. But an atom is simply a bubble of plasma. But that plasma is still the ether, high density ether. And that high density ether is affected by the lower densities. Remember, the forces act upon the atom. Gravity is the lowest density force, but gravity will still act upon atoms, but it's so slight we don't notice it. Light is a higher density, and light will affect atoms. Remember, lighter density affects lower density. Electromagnetism is a lower density, higher density, lower level is where it gets confusing. So that can affect atoms. And sometimes you will have an atom that has a lot of electricity, electromagnetism moving around it. So once you have electricity spinning around in a circle, and really it's spinning around sort of around an atom, around this bubble of plasma. This goes back to the original model of the atom. You had a nucleus with an electron spinning around it. Yeah, nearly right. It's nearly what I'm saying. I'm saying the fundamental atom, the hydrogen atom is the fundamental one. That is a bubble of plasma. That's it. And it's neutral. It's got no charge. Again, there's no positive, negative charge. There's no north pole, south pole of a magnet. All of this is confusing. But if you have a hydrogen atom and you have some electricity spinning around it, which is quite easy because it gets captured, the ether is movement, and electricity can also create bubbles. It's a spinning electricity that is now captured by the atom. Now we've got moving electricity in a circle that creates a magnetic field. And the magnetic field, remember, is perpendicular. So that will create a spinning magnetic field, or apparently a spinning magnetic field that goes around the atom in a perpendicular fashion. So that will create a north and a south pole. It creates a magnetic atom. Once we've got magnetic atoms and they all come together, we have a solid state magnet. But we cannot see any electricity because the electricity is captured by the atoms. It's trapped now. When we have free floating electricity, like in a wire, and we see this in the power stations, electric power traveling through the wires will have a magnetic field, and the wires will either pull together or push apart. We can see that. So we can create a magnetic field when we have an electric current, and that is an effect in space. It's a more fluid effect, but a solid state magnet comes from the electromagnetism trapped by the atoms. Again, the simplest way I can say it. And ultimately, it's a toroidal shape, a donut shape. So once you have electricity spinning in a circle, we create a donut-shaped magnetic effect. Remember, magnetism is the byproduct of electricity. And it's really one and the same thing. Magnetism occurs because electricity is it's a denser level of the ether. And so it will affect atoms. It has a kinetic effect. Two magnets will pull together. It will affect the lower density ether. It affects matter. But it's different to gravity. A different effect. Plasma is the interesting one. That's the most dense effect. So we need electricity and magnetism to create a plasma. And again, a plasma, still the ones we create come from atoms. When you put electromagnetism across a gas, you create a plasma. But you can have a primordial plasma, and they've done it as well. Primordial plasma, they've taken two lasers. If you take two lasers, shine them at each other into a point. Now there's no atoms here, pure light, but extremely intense, dense light. That's a laser. That's like a garden hose shooting water. Imagine you take two garden hoses projecting water at each other. You create an explosion of water. So this is a real experiment that is done. Two lasers towards a point, and they created a plasma. They created matter, atoms. Again, you'll have to research this, but these experiments have been done. It means the lighter density ether, light, compacted in density, produced electricity, magnetism, and that produced plasma. Lighter density increases in pressure to create lower density. Plasma increases, more pressure in plasma increases in density to create atoms. Once you've got atoms, now we've got the material world. But these atoms are now free floating, and these atoms are affected by the other densities of ether. This body is made of atoms, but atoms organized by my soul, my spirit. My soul's spirit is very light, diffuse ether, but it is directly affecting the body, but it affects the body through layers of density in the ether. My thoughts affect my feelings. My feelings affect the creation of light. I'm literally creating light. This is where it's difficult. My spirit, pure consciousness, that creates feelings, a personality, an ego. An ego is a bubble of spirit. The ego condenses. This creates feelings, a feeling of life. I am a personality. That condenses and creates light. That is a light body. The light body condenses into electricity, electromagnetism. That is a denser form of energy that creates another body. That condenses to create atoms. That creates the physical body. But it's more subtle than that. You see, we have to go through a process of growing the body. But once the body is here, the soul, the spirit, pure consciousness, creates the soul creates light, the light body can influence the physical body directly. That is how we work. That is how I animate this physical body. But remember, the physical body is separate now. It's made of atoms. So when this physical body dies, the light body has separated. The light is no longer in the body. Light needs to condense into electromagnetism to power this body. But remember, electromagnetism is a denser form of the ether. We need to create electromagnetism. We need a battery. So in this body, we have got electrical systems that create electrical potentials, that create flows of electricity, and also then magnetic fields. The electromagnetism in this body comes from the systems of atoms, but they are controlled by the light body. The light body is a lighter ether. The light body is directly controlled by the soul, and the soul comes directly from the spirit, pure infinite consciousness. Now we've got a simple model of the universe explaining everything. We have the one ether, different densities or different levels. These different densities interact. And they interact because movement happens. When there's movement, we've now created a potential. We've created a separation. And that separation always wants to go back to rest. And the universe then works in two ways. The creation of movement, and then the release of that movement wanting to return back to rest. So the atoms, the lower densities, they are now autonomous. They all are entropic. They want to return to rest. But the soul, consciousness, it all starts from there. Consciousness creates a movement. The soul creates a disturbance. But the body, the material world, is that disturbance going back to rest autonomously. You look at it this way: energy is the creation of a potential. Consciousness needs to do that. That's why we must have consciousness. We've got technology. Technology is not autonomous. All technology is created by consciousness. No scientist can deny that. Consciousness creates technology. Technology creates a potential energy, a divergence of the ether. But when that technology works by itself, that is now entropic. The energy left to its own devices, all the energy wants to go back to rest. So we have energy and we have entropy. Energy is created by consciousness. Entropy is that consciousness, or that energy now, that material world or the ether returning to rest all by itself. Very deep, but very simple. Everything is still one substance, one force, or one divergence within that substance. But different densities of that substance creates a different divergent effect. Thought, consciousness creates a divergence. The divergence of consciousness is geometry, space. Once you're now thinking about space, you've got time. So space and time is really the divergence of thought energy, the soul itself. Yeah, maybe not quite the soul. Maybe thought energy is still pure spirit. When that spirit at a slightly lower level, the ego, the feelings, the emotions, that is a divergence of the soul. The soul is also created. But even the creation of a soul, that comes from the ether, that is a divergence of the emotional energy. And the soul, you see, now I am a soul, I'm alive, I'm moving, I'm doing things. I am movement, I am a disturbance. But my soul wants to return back to rest, the pure ether. Everything is entropic now. But as a soul, I am a bubble of this consciousness. I can also create my own disturbances. But emotions are an energy going out. Emotions are also entropic. All emotions want to return to balance. A different emotion creates a dynamic. But that dynamic wants to return. Again, very deep. Then we have light. Light is another density. Again, the soul condensed can create light. Starts off with etheric light. But that etheric light gets denser and denser and denser until it becomes more subtle light, like radio waves. Again, they're not waves. Radiation. Yeah. But whatever they call it, it's a more subtle light, but still detectable. And we can now create disturbances in that. See, a radio is still light, but we create a disturbance at the radio broadcast. So we create a different pulsation in that light. We create it. The pulsation we create in the radio is spread out. The radio itself is pure fluid. Remember, I said it in the last lecture. Light itself has no frequency. It's pure fluid. But we create a disturbance. We create a frequency in that light. And that frequency goes off. That disturbance goes off. And it goes off. It gets more and more diffuse. That's how a radio works. You have to be quite near. You have to have line of sight for a radio. The further away you go, the less radio you can receive. Because light spreads out like heat. It's diffusing away back to rest, back to the ether. And electricity is the same, but electricity is denser, more powerful. But it wants to go to rest. It's so powerful now that when you have lightning in the sky, it goes to rest quite quickly. It's faster. Lightning just goes, boof, there it's gone. It's gone back to rest. But lightning will also project light. The light comes off it. That's a softer, more diffuse ether. It's disturbed other levels of the ether as well. And then finally, material substance, kinetics. All kinetics want to return back to rest also. Very deep, very deep. I really hope this made sense. I really hope this made sense. Thank you so much for listening. And you may have noticed I'm not in my usual place. We're having a few days holiday in Tenerife, trying to rest and recharge. We all need it. We all work hard in this world now. But it's one world, one energy. If we can understand it, we have the chance to tune in, go back to the ultimate spirit, pure consciousness. If we can tune into that, pure consciousness, all energy, all densities of the ether come to us. Very deep. The universe comes from pure spirit. I, the soul, come from pure spirit. My light body comes from my soul. My physical body comes from my light body. I want to strengthen my physical body. I want to heal my physical body. I strengthen my light body. I strengthen my light body by strengthening my soul. How do I strengthen my soul? I focus my consciousness. But I bring it to balance, to rest. If I bring it to balance, to rest, then I can connect to the total universe, the highest level of the ether, from which all creation has come. Then, poof, I can gain this infinite energy. I can regenerate all the levels. That's the ultimate goal. And we can understand. Understanding is the real science. You don't do experiments. No, that's meaningless. Listen. We look at the past, the shamans. We think they were primitive. Yeah, no. We, with all this fancy technology, we are the primitive ones. The shaman in the ancient world were more advanced. They did not need this technology. They had a light body. They could go anywhere in the universe. They could connect to the nature around them. They connected to the animals. They had the food. Whatever they needed, they could find. They had human interactions. Love. They existed on the field of love. Yeah, where's the love now? We have been distracted by this primitive technology. We think this is advanced. No. We are living in this. We thought that was the Stone Age. Yeah, no. This is the Stone Age we're living in now. Saying that, I'm making a point here. Of course, we can optimize the technology we've got, but we have to return to the balance. The real technology is the natural forces, and we have become very unnatural now. We are missing the point. That's why I say modern science knows nothing. It knows less than nothing because it has just confused us all. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I do hope this made sense. And please leave me any questions or comments. And I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.